All right, quickly, David, looking at President Tinubu's academic saga, I want you to tell us, I mean, from the unfolding political drama, can you specifically tell us the investigation you carried out? There is a pointer to what we are having at the moment.
Okay, so the story actually begins in 1999. Begins with Gani Farem, because that, as has been forgotten now, on Tinubu's INEC form 99, when he was running for governor of Lagos, he claimed to have attended the University of Chicago. Now, when attempts were made to verify this, the University of Chicago immediately disclaimed him. They said they don't know who this person is, they have no record for him. He then claimed that, oh, actually, sorry, it wasn't Chicago, it wasn't Chicago, it was State University. So, guy taking this up because there was a strong suspicion that this was not, but this was hampered by the fact that one, he had institutional immunity. This wasn't text of a post-election petition. This was just Gani Farem pursuing it as a private citizen. So he didn't really get very, and access to information in the pre-internet era was a lot more restricted than it is now. So last year, when he announced that he was running for president, that was when I obviously took an interest in this issue. A lot of the credit has to go to a lawyer, Mike Enahu, because in addition to the investigation, I took it further. What he actually took INEC to court last year because INEC refused to release the certified true copy of Bola Tinubu's INEC EC9 declaration form, which has all the information that the president claims, his background, his career background, educational background, date of birth, biodata, all of those things. So he took INEC to court, and and he beat INEC in court. So INEC was forced to release this EC9. Now, the information on this EC and went to America to the claim backstory in America. So, for example, the claim that he had worked at the accountancy firm Deloitte using a subpoena to this was determined to be false. The response from Deloitte simply said, "We have no record for this person. We don't know who he is." A similar subpoena was sent out to State University to verify that did this person actually attend this institution? Does this person actually have a degree certificate from Chicago State University? And they responded to the subpoena with a trove of documents. And some of the interesting things that we noticed in those documents was that there were several discrepancies between what was showed on file for the person known as Bola A. Tinubu at Chicago State University and the person we now know as the Nigerian president. So for one thing, the date of birth is different. The person we know as Nigeria's president now supposedly was born in 1952. The person on file at Chicago State University was born in 1954. The person on file at Chicago State University is on file as a female, a woman. Obviously, the person we know as Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a man. And then most egregiously, the degree certificates which Chicago State University as the degree certificate issued to Bola A. Tinubu was a completely different document to the document that he submitted to INEC. So when covering the story, I was then able to even take it further and trace where this supposed certificate, which is submitted to INEC, came from. And I was able to show forensically that this certificate was obtained from an online forgery service called diplomamakers.com. I was even able to show the actual source file for the forgery, the template used for this forgery. Now, being that obviously I wasn't the candidate in the election, Mike and I were about the candidates in the election, I guess in the Nigerian legal system, found it very easy to sort of discount it. They claim that only someone who was either a co-contestant in the election or a political party involved in the election could raise issues regarding could raise issues surrounding someone's eligibility to run for office. So as a private citizen, you weren't allowed to do it. So Mike and I actually submitted a criminal complaint, but it didn't go anywhere. No judge took on the case, so it basically just died. It timed out. Now, after the election, Atiku Abubakar then decided to take this on, and his team actually reached out to me. I gave them everything I had, all the document information everything that I had. And they contacted their lawyers in Chicago. They go through the exact process that Mike and I went through last year, but this time in a federal court at the Northern District of Illinois Eastern Division in Chicago, to compel Chicago State University to release the same records that were released to Mike a year ago. But this time, because they've been released to a presidential challenger, they apparently have more probate value in the Nigerian court system. So that was the battle we've been seeing over the past few weeks, where Tinubu's lawyers were desperately trying to prevent the court from granting the subpoena to Chicago State University. But eventually the subpoena was granted. And in addition to the subpoena, the judgment also said that people from officials from Chicago State University also had to attend a deposition, a sworn deposition, to be questioned by Atiku's lawyers under oath regarding the documents that they submitted under subpoena, the veracity of those documents, and principally the veracity of the supposed degree certificates which Bola Tinubu submitted to INEC. And the deposition, which has become publicly available now, I'm sure you must have seen it, shows conclusively, without a shred of doubt, that Chicago State University has decent certificates that Bola Tinubu submitted to INEC. They said categorically that they do not know where these certificates emanated from. It was not from them. They didn't issue it. So that's as conclusive as you are going to get a statement from Chicago State University saying that this certificate is a forgery. It didn't emanate from us. So that's pretty much a sort of brief summary.
From what you submitted, I want you to tell us what's a kind of crime is being established here that is being committed by the president. Based on the investigation and what was submitted, can you tell us specifically the crime committed by President Bola Tinubu? Because some have said, okay, it is an integrity crime where we have a female as Bola Tinubu, and here we are, the president is a male. So tell us basically the crimes you find out that has been committed by the president.
So first of all, the most important thing here is the fact that forgery was submitted to INEC. That's under the Nigerian
legal system. That's the only thing that is actually recognized as a crime specifically here in the context of the presidential election. The fact that a forged certificate was submitted, because the electoral dates very clearly. It's a very clear, one of the clearest clauses in Nigerian law. Anyone who submits to INEC will not be qualified to stand for office. It's as simple as that. So that's the principal crime that has been committed here. A certificate of INEC. That is a disqualifying offense 100%. There's no way around that. The other crimes which have been committed, which I guess are more of an American issue here, potentially there has been an instance of identity fraud, identity theft. Obviously, this wasn't committed in Nigeria, so that's more of an American law enforcement issue. So there's the issue of identity fraud potentially by the president. There are issues surrounding Chicago State University itself, because if you've read the trove of which they have here, so it becomes clear. If I'm being charitable, at the very least, this is an institution which is criminally negligent at information handling. Because, for example, the Chicago State Office asked that you can confirm that Bola Tinubu at institution. Can you confirm that the Bola Tinubu that you have on file is the same person as the Nigerian president? And he goes, yes, I can confirm that. And then the question, and then the lawyer asks why, and he goes, because that's the information we have on file. The lawyer says, so do you know Bola Tinubu person? Have you ever met him? He says, no, I'm going only by the information on script. So the lawyer says, so you are just making an assumption then? And he goes, yes, that is correct. That's it. So essentially, you're a university making such pronouncements, even based, I don't actually who they have on file, versus who it is that is claiming to be their alumnus. That's a serious issue. That's potentially a criminal issue. In fact, I was informed a couple of days ago that there's a criminal investigation which is going to be starting up at Chicago State University pretty shortly. So I guess those are the main issues. There are obviously other ancillary issues here. Those are the main issues.
Now, with the disclosure of the CSU certificate, what do you think will be the impact on the ongoing woes of the ongoing Tinubu-led administration? What do you think would be the impact on the legal woes Tinubu-led administration is going through right now?
That's talking about the implications.
The implications
of all that has played.
Right. So I guess the most immediate implication is the fact that the Supreme Court has a decision to make pretty shortly. As I said earlier, this is one of those few instances where Nigerian law is very clear. There is no ambiguity whatsoever that anyone who has submitted a forged certificate to INEC must be removed from office. And by the way, there is precedent for that in Nigeria. So in 1999, you might recall a fellow called Salisu Buhari, who was the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who was discovered to have submitted a forged University of Toronto, moved from office. He has never held office against his at the end of that. In 2018, the then finance minister, Kemi Adeosun, was discovered to have submitted a forged NYSC certificate, even a degree certificate, ISC certificate. And because of that, she was forced to leave office in disgrace. So you have, fairly recent precedents for this. So the Supreme Court has a decision to make. The correct decision, obviously, would be to remove Bola Tinubu from office. However, we all know that the Supreme Court does not want to do that, will not want to do that. So there is going to be an issue there, potentially an issue of legal jeopardy, where the Constitution is very clear on something, and the people who choose to interpret the Constitution are then pretzels to find ways to misinterpret the Constitution. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that play out. And then the secondary impact of all that is going on is that obviously there are international eyes on all of this. The supposed investors that Nigeria is supposed to be trying to attract, they are watching, they are looking closely. One of the key metrics that is used to make decisions regarding what country to invest or not invest in is stability of government. If the investors realize that Nigeria is a place which has certainty, it's just generous place that somebody who has this kind of on them, and then the legal system in that country is not strong enough to resist, the imposition of criminal elements into government, the legal system, basically the structural strength of that country, entities can rise to the very one issue. A third issue I think should emerge is that sometime toward the end of this month, the FBI has signified that it's going to start the process of releasing over 2,500 pages worth of information that it has in its file that it keeps on Bola Tinubu. And we know for a fact that a lot of that information is going to be criminal related information. So this just creates even more potential jeopardy, which is why I said on a different platform yesterday that from the moment this deposition was made, there's a possibility that we started witnessing the beginning of the end of the Tinubu government. Realistically speaking, there is no way, regardless of the Supreme Court does it to, that he's going to remain viewed as legitimate president.
Move to the United States of America for him to be able to establish the truth. And also the likes of other concerned Nigerians like you, for us to know that there is a challenge with the president's certificate. Do you think that the judiciary, because you have put the whole issue on the table of the judiciary, do you think our judicial system is strong enough to deliver judgment in this very case, considering the personality that we are talking about, the first man in Nigeria? David? Okay, I think we've okay, as a result of poor network. So guys, a lot of issues have been brought out by David.
Absolutely.
And the box now is that it stops at the table of the judiciary. Okay, David, are you there?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I am. Yes, very well.
All right, my question is, it took Atiku, the vice president, which is the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, to go to lead the shores of Nigeria, move to the United States of America for us to know that there is an issue with the president's certificate. Do you think that the judiciary or the judicial system of Nigeria is strong enough to deliver the right judgment in regards to this particular person in question, the number one citizen of Nigeria?
I think the judicial system of Nigeria has the opportunity to prove that it is strong enough. If we're going by historical precedent, it's neither here nor there. As I said, precedents for people having been removed
from office for this exact same issue. So it's not as if it hasn't happened before. However, the other time it has happened, it wasn't the judiciary that enforced it. It was so in the case of Kemi Adeosun, it was the executive decision to fire and of Salisu Buhari. It was a legislative decision to impeach him. So the judiciary doesn't have a track record of making these decisions. I mean, a couple of times has happened, maybe in some House of Reps member somewhere, some governor somewhere, it has happened, but never at the level of the presidency. So the judiciary has an opportunity. If we are going by precedent, you would have to say the answer is no. The judiciary hasn't proved that it has that sort of independence or bloody-mindedness yet. However, there's a first time for everything. So I choose to see the cup as half full instead of half empty. So I've been critic judiciary, be wrong about them. They have an opportunity to prove that. Hello?
Okay, David. Willie?
Yeah, David, does the Chicago University issue have any impact on the credibility, international credibility of Chicago State University?
It absolutely does. As I mentioned earlier, there is actually a criminal investigation which is on the verge of starting up at Chicago State University now. I think at the very least it has become clear to anyone who reads that deposition
or who goes to events released under subpoena that if it's a stretch to say that the university is actively running some sort of diploma mill, some sort of degree awarding racketeering operation, if it's a stretch to say that, at the very least, you can definitely say that the university is criminally negligent. You can definitely say that, because where a debt on file is being impersonated by, and then the university says they have no way of knowing who is who. That essentially, if you have the same name, or you claim to have the same name as a student on file, then the university just assumes that you are the same as student on file. I've never heard of such a thing happening anywhere else. The university says they don't keep passport photographs, they don't keep passport data page, driving license, any kind of photo ID that somehow they did not have. So at the very least, you'd have to say if that something, involved in a criminal conspiracy here, that it's actually possible for a university to admit people and not keep records of their photo ID. Something which is impossible even in a place like Nigeria. I'm sure we all went to university here. We all know the number of photographs you would take for registration. You will show how many, your birth certificate, all of those things. Assuming it's possible that a university in the US did not request for any of these ID materials, and this is all just been a tragic, they are the victim in this. You still have to say that they are criminally negligent at the very least. So yes, they are reputation has been absolutely destroyed by this thing. I'm sure you're aware that they locked all their social media accounts. People cannot make comments on their social media posts because of the amount of backlash they've been getting, principally from Nigerians. I don't see that this damage is repairable. And by the way, Chicago State University has a very long history of corruption-related scandals. It's already one of the most poorly viewed universities in the United States. So I can't see how this is going to help them.
Okay, David. Now, the issues are no longer whether President Bola Tinubu attended CSU or not. But what we are unable to establish is the originality of the certificate he presented to INEC. Based on this, do you really think we have an argument before the Supreme Court?
Well, I mean, it's very clear that there are two issues here. First of all, the certificate submitted has the university identified it as theirs? Have they said it? They have clearly said this certificate did not emanate from us, which simply means in plain English, this certificate is a forgery. Because if the certificate did not emanate from the university, and the university has said they don't know where the certificate came from, they don't know how this person got hold of the certificate, that can only mean one thing. This certificate is a forgery, full stop. No question marks about that. And the second is, what does Nigerian law say about submitting a forged certificate to INEC? Nigerian law says, and I quote, anyone who submits a forged certificate to INEC shall not be qualified to stand for office. Clear. So as far as the legal question mark is, the Supreme Court, if the Supreme Court actually takes itself serious, it shouldn't spend 5 minutes deliberating on this, because it has been established conclusively under the strongest probate environment in federal courts in the US, which is a stronger probate environment than even courts in Nigeria. It has been proven that this is a forgery. So the decision couldn't be clearer. Like, it's right in front of them. So whether they will actually make the right decision or not, that's a completely different situation. Because as we know, this is Nigeria, where, I mean, we've seen somebody who came fourth in an election being elevated to first place by the same Supreme Court. A decision that was so unconscionable that justices of Nigeria got slammed with visa bans by the US. So nothing is impossible. However, as I said, I choose to see the glass as half full instead of half empty. So they should always feel free to prove me wrong.
This is like a two-in-one question. Firstly, based on all that has played out, what will be the what do you think this the effects this will have on an average Nigeria, both in diaspora and in Nigeria itself? I would like you to talk about that and also tell us the lessons to be learned here, looking at these Tinubu's credentials.
So the impact on the average Nigerian, I'm sure we're already aware, because the average Nigerian already suffers from the poor reputation that Nigeria has. Already, we saw over the past week, there was a story that something like 500 Nigerian in the UK were apparently indicted for having some sort of forgery scandal. So they were being forced to retake their certification exams in order to keep on practicing. Nigeria already has a reputation, whether fair or unfair, but Nigeria already has a reputation for being something of a hotspot for dishonesty, be it 419 scams, internet business email calls, document forgery. So it then becomes accepted that the sitting president of Nigeria is he used a forged certificate to go through his life and to get elected. And though this is public knowledge, that the Nigerian with the fact that the sitting Nigerian is a fraud. It's not Tinubu that he's going to have diplomatic lifetimes. He's not a problem. We are the ones who are going to, short end of the stick. We are the ones who are going to face the issues because we are the ones who, for example, at airports, are going to get scrutiny. We already have scrutiny to get even more because we are the ones who have been seen everywhere we go that these ones they're or they're carrying drugs or we are the ones who are outed and put aside from everyone else. This definitely isn't going to help that. And God, even people trying to get admission into university abroad are going to face even more scrutiny because the difference is then going to be that Nigerians submit forged documents, to use forged documents even from foreign institutions. So this is not for us in any way. Just a shame we are guilty of. The person who is not the one who is consequences. We are.
Okay, David, quickly, some have argued that the president should resign rather than take the country, down the precipice of scandalous revelations as seen now. Do you agree with this school of thought?
I do agree that in a normal society, even before in a normal society, such a person wouldn't even have stood for election. And if they did, the minute I even put out that story, and it became clear to anyone with a functioning pair of eyes that this man, because as far as I'm concerned, since November, this has been a fact. This person should have immediately stood down from the race. If for whatever reason he continued and he had become elected as president or whatever, from the minute it became clear that there is going to be a legal action in a foreign country that is going to expose the country to ridicule, he should have stepped down. Because if you love your country, that's what you do. Instead of dragging your country's name through the mud because of your personal, you step aside, right? But he's so desperate to be president to remain president, that matters. So in a normal society, yes, expect him to do what he has done, which is as everything and is for the whole world is a big market and thing has nothing is sacred. That's the Tinubu way of doing things. Historically, nothing has ever been sacred. To see why he would start now. So yes, he should resign, but I absolutely.
Okay, David, that will be all for now. Many thanks for helping us to dissect this topic of discussion. Thank you so much. We hope that when we call you next time, you will oblige. But before I let you go, absolutely. David, this brings to mind, I know that there are risks, involved in being an investigative journalist. Thank God you're not practicing here right now. Can you tell us some of the challenges you faced in this regards? Would you like to discuss that?
Well, the issue of safety, as we know, I have lived in Nigeria in 2020. There's a very real possibility that I might never be able to return to Nigeria again, which, I was born and raised in, but because of you, I've become persona non grata at home. So that's an issue.